My wife started going live on social media to rate random guys at the grocery store, saying things like, "This one could definitely carry my groceries home while I was at work." Then, she claimed it was just harmless fun when I found out. So, I gave her a taste of her own medicine. I'm writing this because I need to share the most bizarre and humiliating situation I've ever experienced in my marriage. Honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around how my wife thought any of this was acceptable behavior. My name is Mark, I'm 35 years old, and I've been married to my wife, Lisa, for 7 years. Until about 4 months ago, I thought we had a pretty solid marriage with normal ups and downs. But apparently, Lisa had been living a completely different reality that I knew nothing about. Our background. Lisa and I met through mutual friends when we were both 26. She was working as a social media coordinator for a small marketing company, and I was starting my career as an accountant at a mid-sized firm. We hit it off immediately and had a lot in common. We both loved hiking, trying new restaurants, and binge-watching Netflix series together. After dating for 2 years, we got married and bought a house in a nice suburban neighborhood. For the first few years of our marriage, everything seemed pretty normal. Lisa continued working in social media marketing, eventually starting her own consulting business about 3 years ago. She was always very active on social platforms for work, and I supported her career, even though I personally preferred to keep a low profile online. Lisa would often talk about engagement rates, follower counts, and viral content strategies. While I didn't always understand the technical aspects, I was proud of her success. About 2 years ago, Lisa started becoming more active on personal social media accounts in addition to her business presence. She began posting more frequently on Instagram and TikTok, sharing lifestyle content, fashion tips, and day-in-the-life videos. Her follower count started growing steadily, and she seemed genuinely excited about building her personal brand alongside her business. I was happy that Lisa had found something she was passionate about, and I didn't think much about her increased social media activity. She would occasionally ask me to help her film content or take photos for her posts, which I was always willing to do. Lisa seemed more confident and energetic than she had in years, and I attributed this positive change to her growing success online. The shift in content. What I didn't realize at the time was that Lisa's content was gradually becoming more attention-seeking and inappropriate. Since I wasn't active on social media myself, I wasn't following her accounts closely or paying attention to the specific type of content she was posting. I trusted Lisa to maintain appropriate boundaries, especially since social media was part of her professional life. The problem started about 6 months ago, though I didn't become aware of it until much later. Lisa began posting content that was increasingly focused on getting attention from male followers. She started posting more revealing photos, making suggestive comments in her captions, and engaging with male commenters in ways that seemed flirtatious. Around this time, Lisa also started going to the grocery store much more frequently than necessary. She would make multiple trips per week, often for just a few items, and she would always get dressed up before going. She would spend time doing her makeup and picking out cute outfits just to buy milk and bread, which seemed excessive, but not necessarily alarming. Lisa would also start talking about the grocery store in strange ways. She would make comments about how crowded it was, how many interesting people she saw there, and how it was becoming one of her favorite places to people watch. She started shopping at different times of day and trying out new locations, claiming she was looking for better deals or fresher produce. I work a pretty demanding job with long hours, especially during busy seasons, so I was often at the office while Lisa was running these errands. She would text me updates about her shopping trips, mentioning funny things she had seen or interesting people she had encountered. At the time, I thought she was just being chatty and sharing her day with me. The live streams. What I didn't know was that Lisa had started live streaming these grocery store visits on TikTok and Instagram. She would turn on her camera while shopping and provide running commentary about the other customers, with a particular focus on rating and commenting on the men she encountered. These live streams apparently became quite popular with her followers, who would tune in regularly to watch Lisa shop and hear her commentary about the people around her. She developed a whole persona around being the grocery store girl who gave honest reviews of everything from produce quality to the attractiveness of male shoppers. Lisa's comments during these streams were incredibly inappropriate and disrespectful to our marriage. She would say things like, "This one could definitely carry my groceries home," when she saw an attractive man, or "I wish my personal trainer looked like this guy," when she encountered someone fit. She would rate men on a scale of 1 to 10 and make detailed comments about their physical appearance, clothing choices, and perceived personality traits. She also started encouraging her followers to guess which men she found most attractive and would create polls asking them to vote on different guys she encountered. Lisa turned rating random strangers into interactive content, and her audience ate it up. The more outrageous her comments, the more engagement she received. The worst part was that Lisa started making comparisons between the men she encountered and me. She would make comments like, "My husband could learn a thing or two from this guy's style," or, "This is what I mean when I say men should take better care of themselves." She was essentially using her platform to criticize me while praising random strangers she found attractive. Lisa also began flirting with men she encountered during these shopping trips. She would strike up conversations with attractive guys, ask them questions about products or recommendations, and then continue the interaction on camera for her audience's entertainment. Some of these men clearly enjoyed the attention and would flirt back, creating content that was basically Lisa having flirtatious interactions with strangers while live streaming. Her followers started requesting that she visit specific stores or shop at certain times when they thought she would encounter more attractive men. Lisa began taking these suggestions and planning her shopping trips around maximizing her chances of finding content-worthy encounters. She was essentially turning grocery shopping into a hunting expedition for attractive men to feature in her streams. The situation escalated when Lisa started posting photos and videos of particularly attractive men she encountered, sometimes without their knowledge or consent. She would discreetly film guys she found attractive and then post the content with captions like, "When you go grocery shopping and find a whole snack," or, "This is why I love my neighborhood store." Lisa's content was getting thousands of views and hundreds of comments from followers who encouraged her behavior and asked for more. She had built an audience that was specifically interested in watching her rate and comment on men, and she was getting addicted to the attention and validation this content provided. The revelation. The whole situation came to light in the most embarrassing way possible. I was at work one day when my colleague, Sarah, approached me looking uncomfortable and concerned. She asked if I knew about Lisa's social media activity, and when I said I wasn't really familiar with the details, she showed me Lisa's most recent live stream on her phone. I watched in complete horror as my wife stood in the produce section of our local grocery store, rating the men around her for an audience of hundreds of viewers. She was making comments about a guy selecting apples, saying he looked like he knew how to pick quality fruit and that she bet he was good with his hands. The comments from viewers were encouraging her to approach him and start a conversation. As I continued watching, Lisa spotted another man in the dairy section and began following him with her camera while providing commentary about his physique and speculating about what kind of workout routine he might have. She made a comment about how much better he looked than some husbands and laughed when viewers asked if she was referring to me. Sarah looked mortified as we watched, and she quietly said that several people from our office had seen Lisa's content and were talking about it. She said she felt like I should know what was happening, especially since Lisa was making comments about our marriage and comparing me unfavorably to the men she was rating. I was absolutely devastated and humiliated. Not only was my wife publicly rating other men and making inappropriate comments, but she was doing it in a way that made me look like a fool to our community and professional network. People I worked with had seen my wife essentially shopping for men while criticizing me, and I had been completely oblivious to what was happening. The confrontation. I left work early that day and went home to confront Lisa. When I arrived, she was editing footage from her morning grocery run and seemed excited about the engagement her latest stream had received. She was completely caught off guard when I asked her about her social media content, and she initially tried to downplay what she had been doing. Lisa claimed that her grocery store content was just harmless entertainment and that I was overreacting to what was essentially comedy content. She said that rating people was a common form of social media entertainment and that she wasn't doing anything different from what millions of other content creators were doing online. When I showed her the specific clips that Sarah had shared with me, Lisa became defensive and accused me of spying on her and trying to control her content creation. She said that her social media presence was part of her business and that I didn't have the right to dictate what she could and couldn't post. I told Lisa that making inappropriate comments about other men while criticizing our marriage wasn't business content, it was disrespectful and humiliating behavior that was damaging our relationship and my reputation. I explained that people from my work had seen her content and that I was embarrassed by how she was representing herself and our marriage. Lisa's response was to minimize my concerns and claim that I was being overly sensitive. She said that everyone knew her content was just for entertainment and that no one was taking her comments seriously. She insisted that she wasn't actually interested in any of the men she featured and that it was all just an act for her audience. But when I pressed her about the specific comments she had made comparing me to other men, Lisa became angry and defensive. She said that maybe if I paid more attention to my appearance and put more effort into our relationship, she wouldn't feel the need to admire other men. She claimed that her content was actually a wake-up call for me to step up as a husband. This response showed me that Lisa didn't understand how inappropriate and hurtful her behavior had been. She was trying to justify publicly humiliating me by claiming that I deserved criticism and that her actions were somehow my fault. Update 1. After our initial confrontation, I gave Lisa an ultimatum. I told her that she needed to immediately stop creating content that involved rating other men, making comparisons to our marriage, or filming strangers without their consent. I said that if she wanted to continue with lifestyle content, it needed to be appropriate and respectful to our relationship. Lisa's reaction was not what I had hoped for. Instead of apologizing and agreeing to change her behavior, she became angry and accused me of trying to control her career and stifle her creativity. She said that her grocery store content was her most popular series and that ending it would hurt her follower count and engagement rates. She also argued that I was being hypocritical because I had never paid attention to her social media before and now I was suddenly trying to micromanage her content. Lisa claimed that my objections were really about my own insecurity and that I should be proud of having a wife who was confident and successful online. When I pointed out that her content was disrespectful to our marriage and was embarrassing me professionally, Lisa said that my colleagues seeing her content was actually a good thing because it showed them that I was married to someone who was attractive and entertaining enough to have a large social media following. This response made it clear that Lisa had completely lost perspective on what was appropriate behavior for a married person. She seemed to genuinely believe that publicly rating other men and making derogatory comments about our marriage was somehow beneficial for our relationship. Over the next few days, Lisa continued posting her grocery store content despite my objections. She seemed determined to prove that I couldn't control her online presence, and her content became even more provocative than before. She started asking her followers to suggest pickup lines she should use on attractive men and began filming herself having longer conversations with guys she encountered. In one particularly egregious stream, Lisa spent 15 minutes talking to a personal trainer she met in the health food section. She asked him about his workout routine, his diet, and his relationship status while live streaming the entire conversation. Her followers were encouraging her to get his number, and Lisa was clearly enjoying the attention from both the man and her audience. When I confronted Lisa about this incident, she claimed that she was just being friendly and that making connections with interesting people was part of what made her content authentic. She said that if I was more social and outgoing, I would understand the value of networking and building relationships. I realized that Lisa was not going to voluntarily change her behavior and that her social media addiction had reached a point where she was prioritizing online validation over our marriage. I decided that I needed to take more drastic action to protect myself and potentially save our relationship. A taste of her own medicine. I started documenting Lisa's content by taking screenshots and saving videos of her most inappropriate streams. I wanted to have evidence of her behavior in case I needed it for divorce proceedings, but I was also hoping that showing her the full scope of what she had been doing might help her understand how far she had strayed from acceptable behavior. I also decided to give Lisa a taste of her own medicine by creating my own social media presence focused on rating women I encountered in public. If Lisa thought this type of content was harmless entertainment, then she shouldn't have any problem with me doing the exact same thing she was doing. I created accounts on TikTok and Instagram and started filming myself at various locations around town. I went to coffee shops, bookstores, and fitness centers, providing commentary about the women I encountered and rating them on their appearance and perceived personality traits. My first few posts were deliberately similar to Lisa's content. I would comment on women's fashion choices, speculate about their relationship status, and make observations about their attractiveness. I made sure to include comments about how these women compared favorably to Lisa, just as she had done with the men she featured. I also started live streaming my outings and encouraging followers to vote on which women they found most attractive. I would ask my audience to suggest conversation starters and would approach women to film interactions for content, exactly as Lisa had been doing with men. The response to my content was immediate and overwhelming. Within a few days, I had gained hundreds of followers who seemed genuinely entertained by my reviews of random women. The comments were encouraging me to be more bold in my approaches and to provide more detailed analysis of the women I encountered. More importantly, word of my social media activity quickly got back to Lisa. Several of her friends saw my content and alerted her to what I was doing. Lisa was absolutely furious when she discovered my accounts and immediately confronted me about them. She accused me of being vindictive and trying to hurt her by copying her content. She said that my behavior was inappropriate and disrespectful to our marriage and that I was embarrassing her by publicly rating other women. Lisa seemed genuinely shocked that I would engage in the same type of behavior she had been doing for months. I told Lisa that I was simply following her example and creating the same type of content that she had insisted was harmless entertainment. I said that if rating strangers and making comparisons to your spouse was acceptable behavior for social media, then she shouldn't have any problem with me doing exactly what she had been doing. Lisa's response revealed the complete hypocrisy of her position. She said that my content was different because I was a married man and that it was inappropriate for me to be making comments about other women. She claimed that my behavior was making her look bad and that people would think she was married to someone who didn't respect her. When I pointed out that her content had been doing exactly the same thing to me for months, Lisa became defensive and said that her situation was different because she was a content creator and I was just trying to get revenge. She seemed completely unable to see that her objections to my behavior were identical to the concerns I had raised about her content. Comments from the audience. Alright, let's get to the comments that people have left on this story and read them together. Comment number 1, this is absolutely disgusting behavior. I can't imagine how humiliated you must feel having coworkers see this. Your wife has completely crossed the line and doesn't even seem to understand why it's wrong. Comment number 2, as someone who works in digital marketing, this is not normal content creation. This is attention-seeking behavior that's destroying her marriage for likes and follows. She's lost all perspective on what's appropriate. The second comment from someone in the industry is particularly damning because it shows that even social media professionals recognize this as inappropriate attention-seeking rather than legitimate content creation. Update 2. The double standard in Lisa's reaction to my social media content was so glaring that it actually helped her friends and family understand how inappropriate her behavior had been. When Lisa complained to her sister about my revenge posting, her sister pointed out that Lisa had been doing the exact same thing and that my content was just showing her how it felt to be on the receiving end. Lisa's mother also weighed in after seeing both of our social media accounts. She was horrified by the content we were both posting and told Lisa that this type of behavior was destroying our marriage and our reputations. She said that we both needed to delete our accounts and focus on repairing our relationship before it was too late. But Lisa was still resistant to acknowledging that her original behavior had been wrong. She continued to argue that her content was different because she had built an audience and was earning money from her posts while my content was purely vindictive. She seemed to think that monetizing inappropriate behavior somehow made it more acceptable. The situation reached a breaking point when one of Lisa's male followers recognized her from her grocery store streams and approached her at the store while she wasn't filming. According to Lisa, this man made inappropriate comments about her content and suggested that since she was rating men publicly, she must be interested in meeting up with her followers. Lisa was shaken by this encounter and finally began to understand that her content was attracting the wrong kind of attention and potentially putting her in dangerous situations. She realized that treating real people like entertainment for her audience had real-world consequences that she hadn't considered. Around the same time, I was approached by a woman at a coffee shop who had seen my content and was interested in getting to know me better. When I explained that I was married and that my social media presence was just entertainment, she seemed confused and said that my content made it seem like I was unhappy in my marriage and looking for someone else. This interaction made me realize that my revenge posting had gone too far and was potentially damaging my reputation and my marriage just as much as Lisa's original behavior had. I decided to delete my accounts and stop creating content regardless of whether Lisa changed her behavior. When I told Lisa about my decision to stop posting, she seemed relieved but also confused about why I was ending my successful social media presence. I explained that I had started posting to show her how inappropriate and hurtful her behavior was and that now that she was beginning to understand the consequences, I didn't need to continue. Lisa asked if I expected her to delete her accounts as well. And I told her that I couldn't force her to do anything, but that I wasn't comfortable being married to someone who publicly rated other people and made inappropriate comments about our relationship. I said that she needed to decide whether our marriage was more important than her social media following. This conversation seemed to be a turning point for Lisa. She finally began to understand that her behavior had been damaging our relationship and that the attention she was getting online wasn't worth destroying her marriage. She agreed to delete the most inappropriate content and to stop filming other people without their consent. However, Lisa was still reluctant to give up her social media presence entirely. She suggested that she could transition to different types of content that didn't involve rating other people or making comparisons to our marriage. She wanted to find a way to maintain her online following while respecting appropriate boundaries. I was willing to consider this compromise, but I told Lisa that she needed to demonstrate that she could maintain appropriate boundaries consistently before I would be comfortable with her continuing any type of public content creation. I said that trust would need to be rebuilt gradually and that I would need to see evidence of sustained change in her behavior. Update 3. Lisa did delete her most inappropriate content and stopped filming her grocery store rating sessions, but she struggled with the loss of engagement and followers that resulted from this change. She had become addicted to the validation and attention that her controversial content provided, and transitioning to more appropriate content meant giving up the high levels of interaction she had grown accustomed to. Over the next few weeks, Lisa attempted to create different types of content, but she kept finding ways to incorporate inappropriate elements. She would start with innocent lifestyle posts, but then add suggestive captions or comments that pushed boundaries. She seemed unable to resist the temptation to create content that would generate maximum engagement, even if it meant crossing lines we had agreed were inappropriate. The most concerning incident occurred when Lisa attended a community event and started live streaming her interactions with other attendees. She began rating the men at the event and making comments about their appearance and personalities, essentially recreating her grocery store content in a new setting. Several people at the event recognized Lisa from her previous viral content and started gathering around her to be featured in her stream. The situation became chaotic and embarrassing, with Lisa essentially holding court while people performed for her camera and her online audience. When I found out about this incident, I realized that Lisa was unable or unwilling to maintain the boundaries we had discussed. Her social media addiction had reached a point where she was prioritizing online attention over our marriage and her own dignity. I told Lisa that I was no longer willing to compromise on this issue. I said that she needed to choose between her social media presence and our marriage because I couldn't continue to be married to someone who publicly disrespected our relationship for entertainment value. Lisa's response was to accuse me of being controlling and unsupportive of her career. She said that social media was her passion and her source of income and that asking her to give it up was unreasonable. She claimed that I was trying to isolate her from her followers and prevent her from expressing herself creatively. I pointed out that there were countless ways to create content and build a social media presence without rating other people or making inappropriate comments about our marriage. I said that if Lisa was truly passionate about content creation, she could find ways to pursue that passion while respecting our relationship. But Lisa seemed convinced that her controversial content was the only type that would be successful, and she was unwilling to risk losing her following by changing her approach completely. She had become so focused on metrics and engagement that she had lost sight of the impact her behavior was having on real relationships and real people. At this point, I made the decision to consult with a divorce attorney. I wasn't necessarily ready to file for divorce, but I wanted to understand my options and protect myself legally. I also wanted Lisa to understand that I was serious about my ultimatum and that I was prepared to end our marriage if she continued prioritizing social media over our relationship. When I told Lisa that I had spoken with an attorney, she finally seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. She broke down crying and said that she hadn't realized how far her behavior had escalated or how much damage she had caused to our relationship. Lisa agreed to take a complete break from social media and to attend counseling with me to work on our relationship. She said that she wanted to save our marriage and was willing to give up content creation if that's what it took to rebuild trust between us. Final update. Lisa and I have been in couples counseling for the past 3 months, and we've made significant progress in understanding how her social media behavior affected our relationship. Lisa has remained off social platforms during this time, and she's been working with an individual therapist to address the underlying issues that led to her need for online validation. Through counseling, we've learned that Lisa's behavior was driven by a combination of factors, including insecurity about aging, dissatisfaction with our routine, and addiction to the dopamine hits that come from social media engagement. She had gradually escalated her content to get bigger reactions without fully considering the impact on our marriage or her own well-being. Lisa has been genuinely remorseful about her behavior and has worked hard to understand why her actions were so damaging to our relationship. She's acknowledged that rating other people and making comparisons to our marriage was disrespectful and hurtful, regardless of whether it was intended as entertainment. We've also worked on improving communication in our marriage and addressing some of the underlying issues that may have contributed to Lisa's need to seek validation elsewhere. We've made changes to our routine, planned more activities together, and found new ways to support each other's individual interests and goals. Lisa has expressed interest in eventually returning to social media, but with completely different content focused on topics like home organization, cooking, and other lifestyle areas that don't involve rating or commenting on other people. She understands that rebuilding trust will take time and that any future content creation will need to respect clear boundaries. For my part, I've learned that I need to be more aware of what's happening in Lisa's life and to speak up sooner when I notice concerning behavior. I also realized that my revenge posting was not an effective way to communicate my concerns and that it could have caused just as much damage to our relationship as Lisa's original behavior. We're not completely back to normal yet, and there are still moments when I feel hurt or embarrassed by what happened. But we're both committed to rebuilding our marriage on a foundation of mutual respect and appropriate boundaries. The most important lesson from this experience is that social media can become addictive and destructive if it's not managed carefully. What started as harmless content creation escalated into behavior that nearly destroyed our marriage, and it took a serious wake-up call for both of us to recognize how far things had gone. I'm sharing this story because I think it's important for people to understand how social media can impact real relationships and real lives. Creating content that treats other people as entertainment or that disrespects your partner might generate engagement online, but it can have devastating consequences for your actual relationships and reputation. Lisa and I are working to rebuild our marriage, but the damage from her social media behavior will take time to fully heal. I hope that sharing our experience might help other couples recognize similar warning signs and address them before they reach the point we did.